Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. It's December. December is probably one of the three least favorite months of the year for me. I just don't love Christmas. I wish we didn't celebrate it, but it's one of those things. It's been going on for 63 years, and for the kids, it's been going on 32-ish years, 33-ish years. So, we've managed to pull things back into, let's just say, an orderly fashion. The kids have said over time that what they're really into is the getting together of the family and eating a great meal, and then having tons of leftovers and that sort of thing for not Boxing Day. We do our celebration on the evening of the 24th, so that the 25th is just hanging around and being relaxed. And that is a result of back when we used to live in Ontario. Don't like to talk about those days. We had so many different families that we had to get to that it made sense to do our big family deal for my side on Christmas Eve, and then we spent the next 2.5 days meeting all the other expectations. So now that we're in Halifax for 25 years, we have sort of culled it down to what's actually important, which is getting together as a family, having a great meal, and then some pretty good appetizers and desserts. So Phoebe's coming in from Ottawa tomorrow with her partner, Zachary, and she plans to do a lot of baking, including croissants. So I'm going to make a half-hearted attempt at just doing a quick sweep on the kitchen floor, because by the time she finishes baking and the stuffing is made and all the rest of it, it's going to be a gong show in there. So there's aside from sort of basic hygiene, I don't try to clean it very much before the company arrives. And then our son and his partner will show up on Christmas Eve as well, and then they go home and come back at lunchtime on the 25th, and the food begins. So I don't really know why I find it so stressful. I think it's just, years and years of repetitive stresses that I have not learned to, rejig the stress highway on. Well, one of the things I do get a little excited about at this time of year is quite often I put a lot of effort into having books that are just comfort reads, I guess. Not necessarily cozy, but not challenging. I'm looking for something that is going to be enjoyable to read, but is not going to fry my brain out. So I just finished this last night. Now, I have been having a terrible time falling asleep at night too. So this one was great for if you can't sleep. This was a great one. It's called Small Spaces by Catherine Arden, who also wrote The Bear and the Nightingale, which I believe I have read. And this is for middle readers, and it's spooky. It takes place at Halloween. There are scarecrows. The scarecrows are the spooky entity. There is an agreement that someone far in the past has made with someone from the under, let's just say, because he's never really quite defined as to what it's not necessarily the devil, just someone of dubious goals. So this pact that this person made has been following generations, and there's a book that tells a story, and a young girl who's not related to the family with the curse comes upon the book, and she and her classmates get embroiled in this curse, and it is spooky. It's a fairly short read, 218 pages, but it's fairly generous text, so it was a quick read. I'd say I read it in a night, maybe a night and a bit. Good plot, good characters, good supporting characters, and the evilness is definitely spooky and creepy, and yeah, I think it was a good chiller. This one was recommended, I think it was by Gina Stainer Books who recommended this one. Now, and one of the things I'm so looking forward to when Phoebe comes home is I'm hoping she can help me open up the program I use for editing the videos and explain to me what it is I'm doing wrong that I can't capture this kind of information. I should be able to link it to you, and so that you can just click on it, but for whatever reason, it just keeps booting that information out. So I'm doing something wrong. However, this book is called Mrs. Jeffreys and the Yuletide Weddings, a Victorian Mystery by Emily Brightwell. And it's a cozy mystery. It's Mrs. Jeffreys is sort of the main mystery impresario. She has got several colleagues. They're all servants, like a maid and a cook and what is that? A groom that does the horses. Because there is a groom in the book too, because it's Yuletide weddings. And her employer is an inspector. And so the servants all put their heads together, and because they've got fingers into the gossip of the servant classes, they're able to put together a whole lot of pieces and bits and bobs of evidence and alibis and timelines and that sorts of things. So they feed the information to the inspector, who eventually solves the case. But generally, they're like a good several hours ahead of him. And it's fun. It's cute. The characters are fun. Each one is of a stereotype. There is a lot of books in this. Oh my goodness, there are a lot of books in this series. And so I would say that the characters probably stay pretty true to themselves. I don't imagine that the cook changes very much from book to book, but Mrs. Jeffreys might. And so she brings it all together and feeds it to the inspector. This one is about how one of the members of the group is getting married to another member of the group, so there's a wedding being planned, but the murder itself is taking place in a different household, and there is another Christmas wedding being planned there that may or may not go ahead. The third one that I've been reading is a Wells and Wong mystery, Murder is Bad Manners by Robin Stevens. This is also a middle grade book, and it is also a series. Now, I don't think the series is quite as long. I've picked up book 2 but I didn't see a whole lot of others in this series. I think that this author has written other books, but not in this series. And when was it done? 2015. Yeah, so I don't think this is an extensive series. Just in case you like recommendations, Nancy Springer, who wrote the Enola Holmes series, really likes it. So what we've got here are two young girls, Wells and Wong, Hazel and Daisy. Hazel is of Chinese culture and descent and so on, living in England at the time in order to go to boarding school in the 1930s. And Daisy is from an aristocratic family. And they come together at boarding school, and they decide that they're going to have a detective society. And Daisy is just pretty convinced that she is about the best detective there is, because she's read every mystery novel she could lay her hands on. And Daisy is the secretary. She's sort of the Watson to the Holmes kind of scenario. And they've just done, things, missing ties or stolen textbooks, that kind of thing. But then Hazel comes upon a body of one of the teachers and runs back to get Daisy so that they can, oh my God, you've got to see this. And they get back to where the body was, and the body's gone. So was there a murder or wasn't there a murder? And then this teacher doesn't show up for class the next day. So there was a murder. Well, not quite a ways into it till we figure out for sure that there's a murder, but it takes the girls quite a while, and they also are trying to keep their investigation secret. So it's a fun little intrigue. It's pretty lightweight. It's not as what should I say? It's more a B-class movie than an A-class movie. Whoever's reading it will enjoy it, and I look forward to the second one. Okay, I think that's it for me, my reading for the next week. I have more of this ilk. I'm just going to try and lay low and watch the mayhem around me as Phoebe bakes up a storm and Zachary eats it. And I'm not sure what else. We don't really have any plans. We might go out one evening to see the Christmas lights in the neighborhood. But other than that, no real plans besides eating. Say what will follow are a bunch of clips of other fiction books that I have read. So I'm going to say ta-ra for now. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now. Today I'm going to talk about fiction books that I have been reading through the course of December, I guess. And I'm going to start with Gallo Glass, which is book 3 in the Worldquake series by Scarlett Thomas. And sorry, there we go. That should be in focus for you. Gallo Glass is book 3, and it takes the children to the tail end. There's a conclusion there. It doesn't go on into book 4, and we get to see a bit more of the care of Effie's friends, and Effie still plays quite a role in this story. It's still a charming series, and I think it concluded well. And I think that unlike some series where you think, well, really it could have been 2 books or maybe 1, this is a story that actually lasts along 3 books. So I think it's quite a good series, and recommended. It's for middle readers, and it has I think the challenging part about it, if I remember correctly, is there were a couple of pages in the middle, sort of towards the end, I guess, middle to the end, where we get into a certain amount of discussion about ethics and morality, and it was an adult talking. I think, yeah, someone was doing some splaining that really wasn't needed. I think that maybe some of the deeper theoretical points of what the adventure was leading the children to realize in terms of how to use the magic and what the difference between good and evil and so on. I don't think it needs to be laid out quite so flat-lined, you know. So I think there was about, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 pages in total that I thought too much of the author's voice. But I think that a young reader will probably either just skip over that or maybe bring it for questions. But aside from that, I think it was a very good book. All right, I don't usually talk about books that I don't finish, but if I have mentioned them in one of these videos, then I feel like I have an obligation to say why I didn't finish them. There's something that I don't watch on YouTube, and that's book hauls or the TBRs, to be read. I find that quite often people don't bring the entire group of books back, and I really want to know, especially if I've thought to myself, oh, that sounds like a good book, and I've written it down myself and I'm going to follow through. That just becomes a book on my TBR that if they have DNF'd it, then I don't want to follow through on, you know. Like, if you're going to make a recommendation, then retract it if you've made that recommendation and you've not enjoyed it yourself. So with that in mind, I am not going to finish Elizabeth Strout. I was quite excited about it when these 3 books came in, and Elizabeth Strout's first book, Olive Kitteridge, I was thinking, couldn't remember if I had read it or not read it, and as I was going through, it was just people who had such hopeless, miserable lives, and at the end of each character's sketch or chapter, if you like, there wasn't necessarily any hope coming out of that particular character, and I thought, you know, I don't know, right now life is too short for a whole bunch of grumpy people. I can do grumpy on my own. I don't need books to help me with it, so I decided not to go there. And sort of in the same vein, Italian Summer by Rebecca Cyril, I was really looking forward to it. It was one of my most anticipated books for the year, although I hadn't mentioned it, but someone had recommended it quite early on in the summer, and I thought, oh, that sounds, you know, one Italian summer, let's read it in the summer, and it's taken till now to show up at the library. And the main character's mom has just died, and she has never really been on her own. Like, although she's married and has a job and everything, her mother has been such a dominant force or presence in her life that she doesn't really have a life outside of that relationship. And she and her mom had planned to go to Italy, and mom has died before that can happen. And what we're going to see, according to the blurb, is that she comes across her mother as a young woman in Italy. So there's some sort of, I don't think it's magic really, maybe it's a delusion, I don't really know, maybe it's just a really weird grief experience that's going on. Anyhow, by the time page 50, I gave it about 4 or 5 chapters, thinking, yeah, just we're setting the scene of what the problem is, but when we get to Italy, I just couldn't buy into it. There was something about how mom's reappearance as a young person was just, we go from this, again, another kind of flat, oh, there's the birds, I think it's 10 o'clock in the morning, yeah. Wee, 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 wee. We go from this sort of, what would you call it, sort of toneless grief to Italy where, I guess everyone expects everyone to be happy. And I'm thinking, well, she's like, the mom has barely been buried. Is there any way she's going to be able to recover from this grief in such a short period of time? It's just, I just couldn't get into the story. And to tell you the truth, I don't know how this ranked. There were a lot of people in lineup ahead of me, but I don't know, whether it turned out everybody liked it or not. So I have no idea. All right. The next book I read, again, I'm having a bit of a rough road. Last night at the Telegraph Club. It's going to be in my book club discussion tonight, and so I may bring it back to you guys if anything really stellar happens in that conversation. But I read the first chapter and thought, oh, it's about 2 young girls in 1954 who fall in love. One is Chinese and one is Caucasian. And this is when the McCarthy thing is starting to kick off. And Chinese dad has had his papers taken away because he may or may not have treated a communist Chinese person. So that's one whole complication that's kind of off stage. And the young girl is 17 and she goes to a club for all women. And of course, that's frowned upon. There's no such thing as homosexuals in that time, in that particular Chinese family. And so she's got this whole discovery stage happening, plus coming to her parents with the truth because dad's paper problem with the government, her orientation could cause additional trouble for dad. So I don't know, I never really, again, something about the tone, about a very flat delivery of the storyline. So I just read the first 60-ish pages and then the last 60 pages because I didn't think this brought anything new to the story. It was like journalism. To me, there wasn't really any emotion. There was some sex in there, but even that was descriptive instead of experiential. So yeah, I never really got into the emotional side. I was told an awful lot, but I never really sunk into it. So I think, I have a feeling my book club's going to really love this book, but I have a feeling it's me right now, just given my attitude to all these other books. It must be me. So this is by Melinda Lowe, and it is a young adult's book, and it has received quite a lot of good reviews. So the only one that I really have enjoyed lately is Death on Darby's Island, and that's Alice Walsh. She's a local author, and it's taking place on one of the outer islands that in Newfoundland, and it's at the time when Joey Smallwood would like to have everybody leave all these little small islands and come to the mainland. And it's the time where Newfoundland has joined Confederation. And we've got, so Blanche St. Croix has come back home. She's an RCMP officer. She's got a young child. She and her husband are struggling with her having having a career of her own instead of being a homemaker. And her mother-in-law is a very toxic kind of person. She's one of those people that can give an insult backwards. Like, I guess those are the best scones you can make. And you go, it's like, does that mean she likes my scones, or it's just the best that I can make and everybody else's is better? It's like one of those kinds of people. And so there's a murder and there's a mystery, and it's really hops along, and I think it's quite a nice book. I don't know whether she's going to write more along this line. When was this? 2021. So it's possible that the RCMP officer Blanche will come back in a different guise, because she's on the mainland in a smaller community. So maybe she'll travel around Newfoundland as a detective or so. Anyways, I really enjoyed that one. I would say it was the best of several books. Well, it's the best in about 15 books that I've read in the last little while. So, well, hello everyone. If you've come to the end of the video, I did just discover, Steve pointed out to me, how many views I received for my previous video, the one that's titled, If Your Family Go Away. I don't know whether people tuned into that because of the title or whether that was actually the content, but thank you so much. I have over 200 views. That's like, I don't know what that is. That's, what are the percentage of that? It's huge. I have 300 followers and over 200 views. It's just an incredible ratio, and I'm so pleased and delighted that you're enjoying that. And I did receive someone suggesting that we do more of that kind of content. Well, Cheryl's up for it. We have a couple of things planned for the New Year's, and casual conversation about a couple of books. We're going to buddy read East of Eden by John Steinbeck with a third friend of ours that you may have seen once long time ago, and we have some more of the British Women's Library planned. So, and you know, we may, who knows, something crazy might come up. We do like to look for the crazy. So again, thank you so much for all of your views, and I hope that you enjoy this one as well. Take care for now. Bye-bye.